guess this feast, I just want to talk a little bit about, in a way, what's going on in my life. And what I've been learning for the last 6 months. And I know that some of my family has already heard a part of this to a greater or lesser extent. But it goes along with this theme that the children started with selflessness. And I'd like to read a scripture verse that speaks to this. And it's Matthew 23:11. And it says, "He that is greatest among you, let him be servant to all." That was the words of Yeshua. And we have to, as we serve, you know, we can see that in the world. Those that are truly respected as great people were true servants. I mean, there's a few that, you know, that the world knows that would come to mind. People like Mother Teresa, or some of those that became great in the world because they served. There's also those that became great in the world in a way because they bullied. And that's the other way. But you know, their name is not usually remembered in kindness. It's not usually remembered as a good thing. So I guess in my life, if I go back, I've been struggling for the past couple of years, with trying to infuse or create purpose and engagement with the team that I have to lead every day at work. So, you know, there's 140 people now or thereabouts. And it just seems like it's been disengaged, not 100%, but for the most part disengaged from really, you know, I've talked about vision, I've talked about what I feel. You know, we've talked about some of that as a family, as a group, and it's been like, can this happen? Can there be engagement in a larger group of people? But yet, if you look at history, and you look at even around the world today, even the great companies, the great movements, the great churches, the great everything, there's engagement. There's purpose and engagement. And so, for the past 6 months or so particularly, I've been studying that. So, how does this happen? It's not because I don't want it. I think I want it in the worst way. I want engagement. I want a real team. I want a real body. A real purpose. I want everyone to be part of something. And I think quite a few do. And I don't think it's because they don't want it. I think most do. They want to be bigger than, part of something bigger than themselves. And so there's been studies. I've been studying on this. And today I just want to share a little bit of what has come about and relate it to our walk as a group and our spiritual walk with Christ. Starting with, and I know I've told this to quite a few of you, so forgive me if this is repetition. And this comes from a book. It's not original thought with me. It's a book called Tribal Leadership. And actually, I'd be happy to turn any of you on that want to read it or listen to it. It's also available on audio. So I read this book. It's called Tribal Leadership. And it says, 5 stages of development. And the thing is, you always hear the development. Development is a one-way ticket. You keep going up or you die. They say that's not true. Development, in a lot of ways, is your state of mind. The way that you live your life, the way that you react. So there's 5 stages of development, and that also includes the way that we act as a group. And a group can be in a lot of different aspects. It can be they call it a tribe, it can be church, it can be work group, it can be company, it can be community, it can be a lot of different things. But the sum total or the average total, of the people that are in that group, the energy that they bring to that group is what the stage that group operates in. So starting out with the stages of development, stage number 1 is the lowest stage of development is, and the interesting thing about this, the stages of development go right along with selfishness. But the lowest stage of development is that everything is bad. My life is bad. Everybody's bad. The world's a bad place. And the sooner I'm out of here, the better. In the meantime, I'm going to get all I can take. And groups are formed around, or tribes they call it, groups are formed around that concept. A good example of a group that might be formed around that concept could be an inner city gang, for instance, right? Inner city gang, life's bad, I'm bad, my life's bad, not I'm bad. No one thinks they're bad themselves. That's almost never happens. But I'm a victim. My life's bad. The world's just a bad place. So I may as well take all advantage. So they're robber gangs. They steal, they pillage, they do, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff is rampant. That's the lowest group in society. And it's because that's the place that the majority of the people that are in that place congregate. So you form a group for self-protection around the concept of where you are. And how much good does that do? It's a completely selfish group. It's completely selfish in every sense. You're destroying other people, you're destroying other people's dreams in order to create a selfish desire that you don't think's worth anything anyway. And you're ready to you're ready to steal somebody's car that is their pride and joy to be able to get some more drugs. And it's just completely backwards and upside down. So then stage 2, so we won't go on that really long, because hopefully nobody will ever have to be there. And then stage 2 is similar, except you have hope. So it's still that my life is bad. Nothing ever good happens to me. I wasn't the one born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but not everybody's life is bad. And not everybody and everything is bad. So there might be hope. So the difference is hope. There's hope that you can improve your station in life and not necessarily live a bad life like everybody else, like I am right now. Because not everybody, there's a few of the rich and famous that have a good life and have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps or however they did it, and they're good. That's a stage 2 philosophy. Otherwise, my life is still bad. The sooner I'm out of it, the better. And they're still wanting to drown. There's still a lot of drugs and alcoholism. In fact, most alcoholism and drug use and stuff like that lives in stage 2. Because you see that there could be something better, but it's not me. And so when we're dealing with people that are in these stages, realize the philosophy and where it's at. My life is bad, but I can see that there could be something better, but I'm a victim. There's no responsibility for where I'm at and what I'm doing. I'm a victim. And you can get even bigger. So in the organization, in a group or in a company, or even in a church, well, I'm just a sinner. And the sooner I'm into a better place, the better. And in the meantime, we'll suffer the woes of this world. Stage 2 mentality. Or in a company, it's where I'm just a peon and management doesn't give a rip about me and I don't give a rip about them and I'm going to only do exactly what I have to is keep my job because if I don't, I'm going to get fired and then I'm not going to have the income. Stage 2 mentality. They're against me, I'm the victim, and I can't really do anything about it. My life's bad, but somebody else is lording it over, somebody else's life is better. Stage 3 is I'm great, but everybody else isn't. Nobody's as good as I am, and nobody tries as hard as I do, and I'm the best. So, and you see that all over the place. Stage 3 mentality is from the beginning into society. A lot of the movers and shakers in society are stage 3 people. Most of the corporate world is stage 3, and they're willing to tromp on other people in order to maintain their position. So, I am a doctor. I am a lawyer, and I'm great. You're just peons down there that you never passed the bar. How do you know? Right? Stage 3 mentality. I've got it. I know a whole bunch. I've worked hard. I've made myself who I am. You haven't. And I'm going to stay that way no matter what it takes, even if it means tromping on you, doing whatever. And most of the world, believe it or not, especially the business and corporate world, encourages and lives in stage 3. In fact, the entire educational system is set up in stage 3 mentality. Be great. Get good at sports. Get good at scholastics. Get an A. We're going to be great on the bell curve. Well, it's all stage 3. I'm great. You're not. Or maybe I'm not so great, but I'm trying to be great, and I can be great at something. Everybody's good at something. Somebody's great at something. And it becomes, so the tribe that forms around that is very dysfunctional, around the stage 3. In fact, stage 1 tribe is more functional than a stage 3 tribe. Tribe is the word they use. It's a group. It's a company, it's a church, it's an organization, a community. Whatever it is that group. That's the group of people that we interact with. It's definitely can be a family, too. It can be within your own family. I'm great. Nobody else is where pretty much most of society functions today. It lives in a stage 3 thing. And you know what? Stage 3 works. Because everyone's striving to be a little bit better. It works. A lot of companies And a lot of organizations try to encourage stage 3 activity. Are you great? I'm great. You be great, but I'm greater. And make sure at least your managers are stage 3 people that are strong and confident and know what's going on. Stage 4 is the next stage, and this becomes really interesting. And that's when we finally get into a little bit of unselfishness. It's the first step of unselfishness becomes a stage 4 society, or a stage 4 group. Stage 4 group says, we are great. Different from, I am great, now we are great. Maybe every other group states, but we are great as a group. At least now we have unselfishness to serve those that we've put in contact with. And those that we've become responsible for and that we interact with on a daily basis or weekly basis or however often that is. And it becomes very interesting. No longer are we the fierce independent. It has to be, I am great. Now we can actually say, we are great. And you know what? It makes us change our philosophy. Even going to that point is, can I do something that's for the betterment of the entire group without getting the credit for it? Can I encourage somebody else to be better than I am? Can I make somebody can I give somebody else the credit for something that they only did a small portion of? To encourage them so that they take the next step in development. And can we live as a group that is united together? And I don't have to be the one that's the dominant force. I can serve the lowest, and I can raise up the lowest member of that group. That's our job. And if the group is better, I take my pride and my fulfillment in the progress that this group has made, and not me as a person. And then, and that's what really becomes interesting. And you know, if you look at history, including in the scripture, every time that there was something that really changed history, a lot of times it was a stage 4 group. You know, when I was reading this, it just, my mind came out. Why did they say Moses was the weakest man on the face of the earth? Why? He was a stage 4 leader. Now the Amalekites, they were bad people, so it was still his group, right? It was his group. The rest of he wasn't encompassing any more than that. But as a stage 4 leader, he was probably the ultimate. There probably wasn't a better stage 4 leader than Moses. And he changed the world. He changed the world by creating an exceedingly strong group. Was there any group that was ever created or that was ever galvanized in such a way? And yet Moses was willing to lay down his life basically for that group. He wasn't trying to get, the scripture said he was the weakest man on the face of the earth. He was willing to come down and say, when Yahweh said, "Oh, I'll make a nation out of you," these guys, no. Take me. I'm the servant. He said, this group, he had owned the group. He was the strongest stage 4 leader in biblical history. And it changed the world. There was no moving back. And we look at that today, and every time there was a success. I mean, look at pretty much anything. King David, stage 4 leader. He galvanized, first of all, his band of 300, and he served them. And then galvanized the entire nation of Israel around him. Why was he the greatest king that Israel ever had? Because it wasn't, I'm the king, like Saul right before him. He was a stage 3 leader. I'm the king, you guys are my peons, right? No, King David brought it up. We are a great nation. We are the nation of Israel. We are the greatest that there's ever been. And I will serve you as your king to make that happen. That's the stage 4 mentality. And suddenly Israel became the greatest nation on the face of the earth. They dominated their enemies. The Philistines fled before them. Wow. Well, obviously he served Yahweh, but why? And he probably brought it from a different viewpoint because he was following Moses' example of what was given in the Torah. To love your neighbors yourself and to love Yahweh with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And he was able to have that humbleness. That he created a stage 4 culture that was second to none. Then there's one more. And I want to come back to stage 4, but I want to hit stage 5 real quickly. And stage 5 is we are great and we will encompass the rest of the world because we are going to make the world a better place. It's not just us that are great, but we are going to give of ourselves as a group. In a stage 4, there can still be the Amalekites and the Philistines. There's still the enemy. In a stage 5, there really isn't an enemy anymore. And you know, the first man who taught that was Yahshua. Yahshua taught stage 5 culture from the heart down. What did he say? Love your enemies. Do good to those that persecute you. And when his disciples said, "Oh, I'm the greatest," he said, that's what he said. Hey, he that is greatest among you, let him be the servant of all. Told his disciples to go out and preach the gospel, the good news, to all the world. It wasn't, he wasn't limiting himself to his group, him and the 12 apostles, or even to the nation of Israel. His group, yes, he was serving his group. And he demonstrated that. I mean, he washed feet. He demonstrated leadership by service from the very, very beginning. And he operated some kind of a stage 4 culture. I mean, his disciples were that group of however many those were. At the time, obviously, the 12 apostles. And then moving out from that, he had a larger disciple base. But Yahshua changed the world in the greatest way that it was ever changed, and probably ever will be, at least that we know about right now, by implementing probably the first stage 5 culture that the world ever saw. Probably the first time it ever happened. There was actually a stage 5 culture in existence. Because it is, not only are we great, but, I'm putting that very loosely. Great is probably not the right word for it. That's the word this book used. We are going to reach out beyond the borders of this group, us, Yahshua and my disciples here. This is the group. We're going to reach out beyond this and spread the good news of the gospel to the entire world. We want to include all these other groups, all these other tribes. And it's not because we want to proselyte. He wasn't really out there trying to proselyte and create a new religion. Yeshua never talked about creating a new religion. I don't think he intended to create a religion of Christianity. That wasn't his intent. His intent was to spread the good news of the kingdom. That's what he preached. He wasn't creating a new religion. Religion's irrelevant to what Yeshua was really talking about here. He was talking about the good news of the kingdom. He staged that in a stage 5 culture. We will give of ourselves to the entire world. And did that make them great? That principle that he taught his disciples became true in every sense of the word. And I realized that later, after the apostles were gone, that the church changed back, and it went back down the stages, all the way down to a stage 2 culture. In fact, much of the church today lives in a stage 2 culture. But that came down. But that's what Yeshua taught, was love your enemies, do good to those that despitefully use you. There is no walls to this group. We are great, we serve, and we serve together. So, this scene, so, and I realize, I got this out of a company book, one that teaches corporate executives how to understand where they're going as a company and that sort of thing. But it just, as I was reading this book, it kept floating through my mind. And this isn't the only one. I mean, it's every direction. This was just one of the more clear ones to understand. I mean, to lay it out the most clearly. But every time I look at that, I'm thinking, what is Yahweh's plan for us? What is Yahweh's plan in our lives? What does he want us to do? What is required of us? If we look at, the American dream has been to be fiercely independent. I'm a self-made man. Stage 3. That's what we're taught. That's what we live. That's what society expects as a stage 3 culture. But you know what? If we want to go to the next, if we want to create something better than this world of strife, then we need to take the example of first Moses and then Yeshua. And another thing they teach in this book, and it seems that it's true, is you can't skip stages. You've got to go through them all. I mean, maybe you don't have to ever be in stage 1 if you were raised from childhood in a higher level. From childhood, you can go into whatever level that you're operating in. You don't have to go through the lower stages. But if you're in the lower stage, if you're in a stage 2, you can't go to stage 4 without owning stage 3. You have to, so now you think, my life is bad, to let's change the world is a disaster. And that's where the New Age world is trying to take you. My life sucks. This just stinks. But we're going to go out and change the world. And that's where you have the riots on the streets and stuff like that we had a couple years ago. We had stage 2 people trying to go and do stage 5 work. It doesn't work. They have to own stage 3 and 4 first. So, changing the world became a selfish pursuit. Doesn't work. You can't change the world as a selfish pursuit unless you're creates more control, so dictatorship creates destruction. So we have to raise, so when we raise and we work with those that are in our group that we're in contact with to bring them up a level. And we see that they think their life isn't working, so we bring them up to see that their life is working first, before we try to sell them on the concept of changing the world and making it a better place. We have to own stage 3. We have to have the confidence to know that we are great first, because otherwise we don't have anything to offer to the stage 4 or 5 groups. We don't have anything to offer. My life sucks, but I want to be a part of your group. Why? What do you have to offer? And that group may take it, but it will be destruction. They will self-destruct. And we saw that, how much strife that Moses had to go through. He brought this stage 4 concept to a primarily stage 2 culture. And they were slaves in Egypt. My life is terrible. It's just terrible. And when they got in the desert, did that change? They're free now. They're out of Egypt. They're free. Weren't they still stage 2? Oh, I'm thirsty. I don't have any meat. I've been a vegetarian all this time. We gotta have some meat. Complaints. Stage 2, my life is terrible. Was it terrible? They were eating manna from heaven. Was it terrible? No, looking at it now, you don't think that's so bad? Manna from heaven every day. Fire of Yahweh over the tabernacle. Some pretty great stuff. But when they're in the stage 2 philosophy, it didn't matter. They were still stage 2. It took Moses a whole generation to raise that culture. I'm not saying Moses per se. I know Yahweh is the one that did that through Moses as a servant. But taking that from that perspective, and I think, did Moses understand it? I don't know. But you know what? He didn't. He followed what Yahweh told him to do. And he created this culture. Now let's look at some of the things that are in common amongst a culture that moves from stage 3 to stage 4. Going back a little bit to stage 4, which I think we need to own stage 4 before we really push for stage 5. And I feel like even amongst our group that we've failed. A lot of times we look at the future. Well, let's go out. 20 years from now, the world we'll be there to change the world. As soon as the system falls or whatever, we're going to be here. We're going to change the world because we understand who Yahweh is. Wonderful thing. But what do we have to do first to be ready for that? And there's 4 things that tend to pop out as being the most important ingredients. And there's some more. But 4 that I want to talk about today. Number 1, a common purpose. So for any group to be successful working together, have to have a basic common purpose. What was the common purpose that Moses gave to the children of Israel? You want to think about that?
Coming to the promised land.
There you go. Go to the promised land. That's right. That was the purpose. Liberty and into the land of milk and honey. They all had a common purpose. They all wanted to do that. Now, some of them might have been afraid to do that, but that was, and you look at that. That's pretty basic. It's not really like spiritual or anything. It's a pretty basic common purpose. They wanted to get from here to there to So, the next step, the common purpose, is what do we have in common? We call that core values. I don't know, some of you noticed I've got posted up core values here for the company recently. Moses had core values too. Yahweh gave him some core values. There were 10 things that were on tables of stone. Do any children remember what those things were? What was on the tables of stone that Moses had to write on tables of stone? Right. The 10 Commandments. You heard of those before? Somebody had some of those up posted up here yesterday. Oh, it's by the kitchen door now. Okay, so Moses, for that group, stage 4 of culture, he created 10 core values. These are the values that we have in common as a group. And if you don't abide by these core values, then you're out of the group. Your name is cut off forever, or maybe your head is cut off forever, but you're out of the group. No longer a member, you're out of here. You either see the core values this way. These are the core values that the house of Israel has. Obviously, Yahweh gave those core values to Moses. But Moses used those as the core values, common purpose. We're gaining liberty. And we're going to go to a land of milk and honey. Here's our core values. We're going to live. We're all living by these 10 commandments. We're having only one God, Yahweh. We're worshiping no other God besides Him. No graven images are going to be in our camp. We're not taking His name in vain. And we're all keeping a Sabbath day. These are the core values that we hold dear. We're not going to kill anybody. We're not going to steal from each other. Whole, very important, basic core values to the stage 4 culture of Israel. Anytime we want a stage 4 culture that encircles this group, we have to have a common purpose and a common belief system in the sense of core values that we can agree on. Don't necessarily have to all concentrate specifically on the same core value, but we have to agree to the core values that we're going to live by. Makes sense? If there's a group, we have to have the same basic core values. And then we have to be able to, measure and analyze the progress that we make. Oh, wait a second. I skipped the second piece. Second one is purpose, core values, vision. Where are we going to go from here? Now, purpose includes some vision, but our whole vision. What do we see in common? How do we view the way life works? And having a vision, and you know what? Everybody doesn't have to have a vision. Everyone does not have to have a vision in the same way in a group. If you're in a group culture, in a tribe, we don't all have to be visionaries. But we do have to, if we're not a visionary, we have to be willing to follow the visionary. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, in company culture, they say, well, there's 3 kinds of very valuable people. First of all, there's your visionary. He's the guy that has the ideas. And then number 2 is, then you have the guy, you call it the make it work person. So he's the one that takes the ideas and he comes up with the ways to make the ideas actually practical and work. Puts down and creates the systems around them, all that. It wasn't necessarily his idea. But the guy that had the idea didn't really know how to make it work. You need somebody else that makes it work. And then, number 3, you have to have the people that work it. There's nothing that's just important, in fact, more important in a lot of ways, to work the idea. It's not that everybody has to have the vision. We have to have people that have the vision, and obviously these overlap. It's not that there's some clear, defined change, personality type. Oh, if I have a vision, I can't make it work. No, it doesn't necessarily work that way. There's a very defined roles. And then number 3, you got to have the people that make it work. So we have to be willing to change our own personal goals a little bit to amalgamate with the greater vision of the group. And if we're unwilling to do that, we're stuck on stage 3, I am great, and it's my way or the highway, then we'll never get stage 4. It just doesn't happen. And we're never going to make any great progress if that's all the far we go. You know, stage 4 culture, Moses, great visionary, obviously, you know. And then he had a few people that made it work. Joshua made it work. You know, his father-in-law came up with some very practical ideas to make it work that were amalgamated into Israel culture for 1,000 years probably, or however long it was. Probably still is to this day to a certain extent. And then there were lots of people that worked it. Stage 4 culture. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to have the vision. And then we need to measure and analyze the results frequently. How are we doing as a group? How are we doing on the vision? And in a way, that's what the children just did with these papers that we wrote. Analyzing the results. How is our selflessness coming along? Maybe a simplistic way. Measure and analyze. What is our vision? To be selfless as a group? Or are there things in our vision that we're to do? And as a group, what are those things? What is, how are we doing on the common purpose? How are we doing on our core values? What we hold dear? How are we doing? And then celebrate the success. Yes, we've gotten this and this done. We see a lot of the young people, this core value in their life. We see a lot of selflessness coming out. That's the core value of the group, which in a stage 4 culture, it's got to be. We have to be willing to lay down our life for the group. We have to allow the group to take center stage and not us as a person. So do we have that? And then the 4th thing, and this is probably the hardest one for me to articulate, is the group has to have some spirit. There has to be something that we can rally around. There has to be some spirit in the group. There has to be some emotionalism, I guess, if you will. And you know, I've seen that abused so much that kind of on a personal level degraded it a little bit. Said emotionalism is worthless, but it's not. It's not completely. There used to be some team spirit, if you will. There needs to be enthusiasm, but in whatever form that takes for the group, there's no law on how that has to work. I mean, it could be, Daniel described that in a group that he was in a few weeks ago. Made you feel pretty good, didn't it? It was great. That's the piece. And sometimes that's the first piece. I didn't necessarily put these in order. Sometimes that's the first piece. But there's got to be some spirit. There's got to be some emotional tie. There has to be some physical demonstration. There has to be some from lack of a better word, maybe some dogma or some culture. Some things that we do just because we do those, because that's what our group does. We light the candles, or we do whatever it is. And Moses created a lot of that. Rallying into a stage 4 culture, he had lots and lots of, we got the tabernacle, we go up and we march. This group's on this side, this group's on this side, and we come up and we all shout, and we all lift up, blow our trumpets, and we do all these things. We can't completely, and truthfully, yes, we've seen this stuff abused exceedingly too. I mean, a lot of stage 3 cultures use these things to dominate over stage 2 people. Catholic Church has done that. There's been quite a few cultures that have done that. But it works. And in a stage 4 culture, that is another thing that we use to create the emotionalism, the emotion of love and caring, really, if you get right back down. But a lot of that drops away in the stage 5 culture. Yeshua didn't hardly do it. He kind of just let it go. It's because that greater purpose begins to encompass the whole world. And what stage 4, what that does, and I'm not talking about the emotionalism. Yeshua did have emotions, no question about it. But I'm talking about a lot of the rituals, I guess, is probably the proper term. A lot of that fell away going into stage 5. But at stage 4, that was still a pretty important piece. So when we're doing the change in company culture, we create these rituals. We have a meeting every morning. We say kind of the same things at this meeting every morning. We create rituals around this. Does it matter? In the long run, it shouldn't, but it does. It's exactly what Moses did. He created rituals around for a lot of things. Yeshua created none. But Yeshua was creating a stage 5 culture, not a stage 4 culture. And I feel like we've got to own stage 4 first. We have to own stage 4. So we have to be willing to create a certain amount of ritual within the groups that we live within. Until we're at the point where it begins to encompass, because these rituals, the problem with the rituals is they hold us to stage 4. So as we create these rituals, we need to understand that these rituals are for us. But the ritual will hold you to a stage 4 because that group doesn't do these same rituals. So they're not, we can't care about them. Creates a division. in the stage 4, it divides group from group. And at stage 5, where we're not trying to spread the rituals any more than Yeshua tried to spread his rituals. He didn't. He was trying to spread the gospel of the kingdom. Good news. The change in government, if you will, of the entire world. He was spreading the gospel, good news. He wasn't creating a new set of rituals. Never did. Rituals were already there. Moses created all the rituals. But the scribes and the Pharisees, and Yeshua condemned it over and over again, boxed up. Oh, if you don't do our rituals, then you're in outer darkness. No, it's not what Yeshua taught. He began to encompass that. But having the stage 4 culture includes emotion. It includes some rituals. It includes some spirit. And I just, so those are the 4 things that really make up a stage 4 culture. And I'm here, and I'm just kind of laying this out as a group. And what power is there in a group versus in an individual? You know what? There's almost never been an individual that would not become a tribal leader of some sort that made any impact on the world that I can think of. Except maybe in a bad way. Maybe some assassin or something. But in any good way, I cannot think of any individual that did not become a tribal leader, that did not bring his tribe or his group, did not become the servant of that group to some level that ever made a difference. So lots and lots and lots of proud people. Stage 3, great men. But none of them ever make a difference for anybody but themselves. Oh yes, a few of them get wealthy, a few of them get... But usually it's on the backs of those that they trod upon. In a stage 4 culture, we don't trod upon each other. We're lifting up the knees. We're just as happy for the success of somebody else in the group as we want their success. More so. We celebrate each other's. So when there's a group of 50 people and one person has a success and there's 49, everyone but that person celebrating the success. There's a lot more celebration with just the one person, right? It works a lot better. And that's where we actually get pride. So every time there's been a change, anytime there's been a great leader, or a great movement, or anything of that nature that's been successful, it's been in at least a stage 4 culture. Just look back, looking at history, and they're not all necessarily for good. Some of them, didn't necessarily have very good core values, but they had them. Even if it was to dominate and beat up the world, it was to take booty and plunder. At least they had their purpose and they had their core values. And they gathered together as a stage 4 group. Obviously, they could never go to stage 5 from that mentality because they can't encompass others. They become a dominant group. But you look at any great leader in the world, military, civil, any of them, and that's always, any time they made change that lasted, it was from a stage 4 culture. And, in these stages, you can give them different names. There's no gate. I just took that part from this book that I read. I just thought it was easier to understand, easier to articulate, I guess, by using that metaphor that they used in that particular situation. But I just want to encourage encourage each one here to be thinking about what is my vision, what group activities are valuable for me, and what can we really do? What is our purpose, and what's our core values? Let's start. What is that? And then begin to articulate that, talk about it. Well, that's one of the things that Moses said about that in the family. Talk about it in the morning and at noon and at night, right? We're supposed to talk about it every day. Core values, obviously. He was talking about that group's core values. I'm not saying our core values need to change a whole lot from Moses's even. But they need to be ours. We need to own them and not say this is the commandments of Moses, or that's the Torah, or that's our interpretation of it. We need to grasp what we own so we can own these core values in a way that's purposeful for us. Anyway, that was what has been burning in my mind. And like I said at the beginning, this is kind of sharing what I've been doing for the last 6 months. But it's been really exciting to me because I'm seeing it everywhere. Sure, I've read lots and lots of books, probably more than most people. And, lots of books have good suggestions and a few good things. Thing is, there's very few of them that line up with reality and with history. This is the way that this works. This is the way that this works in society and through the nature of the people in man. And at this point, I just wanted to throw this out, deliver it. I know some of the family has already heard a good deal of this. But I really think it's the key. I think it's one of the keys to the next steps in success. I feel like, we've kind of spun our wheels for 20 years in this group. Not that we haven't made a lot of progress too, and I'm here to celebrate that. But I feel like the last few years it's been a little bit of not a lot of movement. I believe this is the way that can change. And it can change just as soon as we grab a hold of it and are willing to make that purpose and those core values. What is it that we're going to get done? And it doesn't matter who does it. The one who does it, we all celebrate. Every bit of progress. Every piece is important. Whether it's the least or the greatest, it doesn't matter. We're not responsible. It's not a top-down structure, nor is it a bottom-up structure. It's a common vision and common goals. And it's run by a leader who's willing to be servant of all. Or leaders, it's not a single leader's name. The tribal leader is the one who's willing to be a servant of all, just like Joshua said. And whether it's a stage 4 or a stage 5 culture, that's what it's about. And anyway, it's been a really exciting concept for me, and really in a way it's consumed my life for the last few months. And I guess I just had to talk about it in this context. Alright. We'll go ahead and close in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much leading and guiding us towards your will and purpose each and every day. Lord, we thank you that we have this time to come before you and worship you in your wonderful set aside times. We thank you and praise you in every way. We ask you to be with us, guide our hearts and minds for your will you have for us and for all your people wherever they are. In Yeshua's name. Word.